FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
I'm Frank Foer.
I'm Eve Fairbanks.
And it's a bit early in the morning for all this, isn't it, Eve?
Not when we're at the Ritz-Carlton where we're filming.
But not staying because we're just not like that.
Yeah.
We don't roll that way at the New Republic, unfortunately.
We use your subscriber money well.
Yeah. No, the DNC put us out at a Holiday Inn 45 minutes away because of some hit job Eve wrote about Howard Dean a couple months ago.
It's true. It's true. However, we're celebrating the new vice presidential pick with the Ritz-Carlton's newest cocktail, the Biden My Time.
It's a shameless product promotion.
We've got two.
I'm a little bit embarrassed. Devalues the brand, Eve. But we're out here in Denver for the week, and the convention's about to kick off. And I thought it might be good for us to have a little conversation about what Obama needs to accomplish over the course of this week. And one of the obvious things that he needs to accomplish is to finally bury the hatchet with Hillary. You spent some time with Hillary folk over the course of the last day, and you're going to spend some more time with them over the course of the next week. Is there anything that he can do to try to make things good with the Clintonistas?
Yeah, they're everywhere. I sat next to one diehard Hillary delegate. I wrote about it on our blog, The Stump, on my plane over, and also they're going to be having, I think tomorrow or Tuesday, a big rally for Hillary, meetings. They're doing a big Emily's List gala where Hillary is talking kind of as like a...
Are these Pumas?
Are they Pumas? What is a Puma, you might ask? Puma means people, party unity my ass. Excuse me. And it's like, there's a whole spectrum, that's sort of the thing. And in fact, it kind of dilutes their juggernaut in that they've divided into all these different groups, and some of them are just like, you know, we'll vote for John McCain, we're so furious, we hate Joe Biden, you know, and they are the Pumas. They're all the way on this extreme side.
The dead end of the dead enders.
Yeah, and they have a whole kind of, I saw them carrying around signs today amid these like give Pete to the chance sort of protesters, and they had signs with these big paw prints on them, and you know, they're all into this branding of how much they hate Obama.
Yeah.
And then there's, you know, you can go back, and people who think that basically, you know, they're very angry, they're very upset, but they feel like there can be this moment of closure, of catharsis that will happen when there's that roll call vote.
One thing I don't really have a great sense of is the numbers. How many of these Pumas actually exist? How many of these Clinton dead-enders actually exist? How many people are there out there that Obama can ultimately bring back to the Democratic fold?
The numbers are really hard because there are people who are really upset, but they're going to vote the Democratic ticket. I was before I came out here, I was spending a little time in Des Moines. Yeah. And I ran into a woman at a Kathleen Sebelius event. It was really scintillating. But she, this was...
I don't know how they would have named the Sebelius cocktail.
No, right, yeah. Don't even have any ideas. But she...
Chimcane? Sugar cane mojito.
Yeah, I had the Buy Mai Tai, but I think the Biden Mai Time is... It was a good choice for the Ritz-Carlton, Joe Biden, because it got them off the hook with this well-named cocktail. But
and tasty.
This woman who was an Iowa Hillary delegate, a different one than the one I met on the plane, said, and she had gone totally over for Obama, and she said that she was trying to get all her Hillary friends, some of whom I guess had been precinct chairs or whatever, to vote for Obama, and that she estimated, or to kind of become, you know, excited about him and volunteer and put their heart into the ticket. And she estimated that half of the people that she knew were kind of on board and half weren't. So, you know, I think maybe those, like, that would be an estimate at the numbers. And so it's a big problem for Obama, both in terms of votes. I mean, there's a limited number of people who are going to stay home, but also in terms of the energy, the fundraising money, the
I wonder if there's some tension between some of his competing goals, that in order to win over these Hillary supporters, it would help if he could make a strong argument on abortion and on some of the women's issues, and I'm sure he'll do a lot of that this week. But on the other hand, some of those appeals might hurt him in shifting towards the center, which is clearly another one of his goals over the course of this week.
Yeah, and I would be interested. I mean, I've sort of been thinking today and tomorrow I'm going to spend some more time with some Hillary supporters of various stripes, but in what you think, aside from bridging the Hillary gap, which is really only one of the kind of myriad issues that Obama has to face. I mean, what else, if this were to be a perfect convention for him, what would he come out of it having done beyond like, a 15-point bounce or whatever, but what more substantively?
Well, for my money, I think that 2004 was the speech that made him, and I think that it would actually be great for him to return to some of those 2004 themes because they were some of his most potent themes. I think that patriotism has always been the thing that has earned him the most mileage, that Obama makes people feel good about America, and he's got a unique case to make for how we can reconcile rifts in the country, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's useful for him to return to in that it helps rebut some of McCain's most vitriolic attacks on the guy, but it also helps him return to his strength and to a kind of positive message. The other thing I think that is important is you saw with the Biden pick that he was very self-conscious about how he was going to reach out to Rust Belt, working class voters, and that he's in the middle of this pivot to the economy and talking about a little bit more of a populist type message.
Right.
And I'm sure that, well, I'm not sure, I'm guessing that that's going to be part of what he's going to talk about this week, and that his speech on Thursday night is going to have a strong populist message because that's something that always works for Democrats around this time of year. And I think it's something that he needs to do for a whole wide variety of reasons, that he needs to talk about economics because people don't feel, the McCain campaign has successfully branded him as some kind of elitist who's out of touch. For Obama to lose this election when he's got an economic plan that the voters clearly prefer, and in a year when the economy is clearly headed into the tank, he can't afford to squander that enormous advantage. So he's got to find a vocabulary that allows him to take full advantage of all that.
When I think of the 2004 speech too, I mean, the line that I remember, I don't know what you would think of if you think of like the line that's from that speech, but I think of we have gay friends in the red states, and in the blue states we worship an awesome God.
Yeah.
And I remember when he uttered that line, I remember where I was. I mean, it was almost like a sort of JFK kill thing.
Me too.
And because a friend of mine who's like a kind of guy's guy called me, and he was in tears, and he, now it seems like this kind of cheesy, that's Obama's line, but it was this very moving thing at the time.
That's a good point. That awesome God line was that there was a little bit of the language of the megachurch. You felt like he was tapping into the zeitgeist with that speech, and so if there was a way for him to reclaim some of that.
And also the kind of bipartisanship is such a sort of tepid, kind of sexless word, but get past the old, change.
The idea that that he could somehow heal the country.
Right. And I actually think Biden works with that because as someone, I don't know if it was on our site or somewhere else, but someone said, Biden, and this was right after Biden was picked, but someone's takeaway was basically Biden came of age in the Senate at a time when the Senate was, by all accounts, more functional. And people had these relationships, and they were able to do things like Biden did the Violence Against Women Act. That kind of like major legislation would just run up against the shoals now. And so that kind of, it's almost like this retro, and so
I'm a big fan of the Biden pick, and one of the reasons that I'm a big fan of it is that I think Obama was able to concede a certain measure of vulnerability with the pick. Tasty, huh? That he was able to concede a measure of vulnerability with the pick. That I think that Obama as a candidate is so eager to smack down Republican assaults on him for understandable reasons in light of what happened in 2000 and 2004. But there's something about Obama as a person that seems invulnerable, that he's this guy who never breaks a sweat. He was the Harvard Law Review editor. He was the guy who shot up so far. Everything about the guy...
Kind of impermeable, almost
impermeable,
to like a cipher.
Well, not a cipher, I don't think, but just somebody who's all the reasons that people think he's awesome maybe mean that they think that he's too awesome, if you know what I mean. That there's something about him that's been too blessed. He's had breaks that fall his way, which I don't think is really a reflection of his biography. But I think that he needs to show some vulnerability. He needs to give people something that they can emotionally latch onto.
I mean, Biden is someone who, it's because he had.
He's all vulnerability.
Yeah, exactly. He had this career that really was very. I mean, in some ways, it was like Obama. Like he shot up to the Senate. He won when he was 29. He wasn't even eligible. He was 30 by the time he was sworn in, and then he just he knows what it's like to be really high and fall really hard.
Yeah, just to close on one thing, I don't know if you read the David Marinas profile in the Washington Post of Barack Obama this morning. The Post had this breakout section where they published first couple thousand words of this terrific Marinas
Ours is a
profile.
USA Today hotel, so I didn't read it.
You're lucky to get a newspaper there. We're not at the Ritz-Carlton. It was about his mother and growing up in Hawaii, and
I heard about.
Very interesting, unusual childhood that he had. But the thing that struck me about Obama in this piece, unlike John Kerry, unlike Al Gore, unlike Bill Clinton, he wasn't somebody who thought he was going to be president. If you look back at Obama in high school, he was this guy who was a B student, who was not the loudest guy in the class, not the class president. He was a likable guy, but he didn't have a whole lot of ambition for himself. And I think that a lot of the way that people think about Obama is not like the real Obama. I think people think about him as being ambitious and it being the one and anointed. But the truth is that that's an Obama that came much later in life. And I think it's interesting to have a politician who didn't know that he was going to be destined for something like this. And it all happened really fast. And I think he needs to convey some sort of the sense that this is somewhat of a surprise to him, that this is something that he didn't spend his whole life seeking, but it's an opportunity that's landed in him. And
a privilege too, an honor. I mean, one thing, his speeches tend to underwhelm, but that I sometimes like about McCain's speeches is he says, if I have the honor to be your president or something, whereas both Hillary and Obama, and it's like a focus group thing, say, when I'm president, and it's meant to implant in your mind, oh, that person's already president, I guess we'll have to pull the lever for them, But a certain sense of awe at what's come onto him. I mean, I just think adding someone to the ticket who has such a different story and has had such a longer life in politics even, will just provide a great sort of counterweight. I mean, it's almost like the focus on Obama and every aspect of his biography and his self-madeness and his autobiography is so laser and so intense, I like reading these stories about Joe Biden.
Yeah. Well, that's another point, which is that one thing that would be nice to see the Democrats do this week is try to turn some of the attention to John McCain and stop this from being a race that's defined exclusively about Obama. But that's a conversation, I think, for another day and another cocktail named after, I don't know, prospective Obama Secretary of State, perhaps.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So until then, thanks.
Thanks.